Welcome to Street Psychology Podcast. Today's guest is Summer Roshni Bhullar. She's going to be talking about her journey with grief and how she created a new life for herself and how she's continuing to prosper and foster that life today. So, Summer, do you want to start just by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit more about yourself and your story?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me, LaSylvia. It's my honor to be on your podcast and for you to give me this space to talk more about my story. As we were before the recording, you asked me about my name, so I can probably start right away from there. That Roshni was my mother's name. And after she passed away, I legally took it on as my middle name. I didn't have a middle name before that, so I made her identity and her a part of me forever. And it makes me feel good to carry her name with me all the time. So usually we don't have people calling you by their full names with the middle name included, but that's why I everywhere I want my name to be called by that. So that's one of the reasons why I have my name like that.
That's a beautiful story.
Thank you. So I was born in India and I moved to the US in 2009. I was about, I think, just past 26 years old, and my brother and my sister were already going to school here, they're finishing their degrees, and my parents wanted to move at that time. And I moved along because I had my life all figured out there, but I didn't want to stay away from my family forever. So I decided that it would be a good step, almost against my wishes a little bit at that time, but I didn't want to be away from my family. I knew if I didn't move, I would be meeting them once a year when we travel to each other or once in 2 years, and I did not want that at all. So I moved here, and the five of us, my mother, father, sister, me, and my brother, we lived close by, but in and around New York, in the New York City and outside of that. So my life kept going on. I decided to go back to school and study art. It was always my dream to study art, and being in New York and then trying to figure out my way ahead, either I could have gotten a job, but I thought maybe I should finally pursue my love. And I went to art school, and I think that was probably one of the best decisions I ever took. And I keep encouraging everyone to follow their heart because I look back at those days and I feel like they were the best days of my life. And if I hadn't taken that decision, I would always have thought that, what if? So anyway, as time continued on, we finally got a chance to hang out with each other, do vacations together, and the years kept going on. So in March of 2020, just before the pandemic had started, the news had started coming in that there's this virus and be careful, but they hadn't really shut down everything. So I had started to date someone, and my mother had wanted us to visit my parents who lived in the suburbs of New York City. I was living in New York City, my sister was there too, and my brother lived in the suburbs. So we decided to just have a family hangout day, which we usually did, and my mom would cook and all and things like that. My brother wasn't coming that day. My sister and I went, and this was the 12th of March. And we had a good day. I told my mom, like, this is a new person I'm dating and this and that. And she was finally happy because previously she hadn't been happy with my dating choices too. And we had a good dinner. My father said that I'll drop you back because I don't want you to take the train. The pandemic is starting and I'm not sure. So he dropped me back, me and my sister. He dropped us. We lived in adjoining apartments and he dropped us back. My parents left. And when they went back, I was expecting my mother to give me a call saying, we're home and we'll talk tomorrow, something like that. And this was just past midnight. He called and he was panicked and he was like, she fell. And I've always been very intuitively inclined. One of my personal interests, and I'm also pursuing psychic studies. So I've always been very attuned to energy and things beyond the five senses. So this happened, and something just didn't sit well with me. I knew something was wrong. And I ran to my sister's place, and my brother in law was also with her. They were not married at that time, yes. So we rushed back. It was about a 35-minute drive at that time. And we went back, and they'd already taken my mom to the hospital. And my father said that she just fell. That's all. She just fell and she didn't respond. And That's what happened. My brother-in-law, my sister, and a couple of my father's friends had come to help. They left for the hospital. I stayed back because I think the police were still asking my father questions. It's general procedure, to my knowledge now. And I've shared this story before in my own podcast also, but this is a little incident which is very significant in my life. Is at that time, my father said, "Can you go up to the apartment?" This had happened outside of the garage. And he said, "Can you go up to the apartment and get my glasses?" And I said, okay. I went up and I opened the door and I felt my mom was there very strongly. I felt that she was all around. And that feeling, although I felt a bliss from her presence, told me that she's not coming back. She's in bliss. She's already here. And I kept logically thinking in that few couple of minutes that if she's here, she's not at the hospital. So that means she's already left. And so this whole thing progressed and we went to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I got a call from my sister that she was no more. We didn't get an autopsy because we didn't really want to, but either she had a stroke or a cardiac arrest. And it was very sudden. She was 60 years old. And that moment, I think I carry that moment in my life always, that moment when my sister told me, and that realization, I felt like I couldn't react. I felt the shock of it. I felt like something had just hit me, but I couldn't cry. I didn't know what to feel. I felt like my arms were taken away from me, and now I had to function like that. My mother was like that always, like that presence, that protection, and that feeling that whatever's going on in life, she's there. So in that one split moment, I felt like that's never going to be there. Now you're on your own. That's the feeling I started to get. And we went there and everything. So if I cut to make the story short from there, it was like all the last time rites and everything. We did that. The thing was that this was 13th of March, and right away they announced that the pandemic had started and everybody was supposed to isolate. And I had experienced death before. I had experienced my grandfather's death, my grandmother's death close by, especially my grandfather's, and I was close to him. But he was older. We were in India. The system was more inclusive, where there were people visiting. You had a lot of support. In this isolation, where my brother was dealing with it on his own in his isolation, and in this little apartment, my father, my brother-in-law, my sister, and we were locked in together. That same place where we had all our memories with my mother. So it was almost like in a single instant, life was like, now she's gone. She's there, you were having dinner, you were talking, and the next instant, I felt like my brain took many months to process, like even my family. It was that her passing was one thing, but the way it happened, like suddenly, the brain had a hard time processing that, where is she? I kept having these questions. But I think the journey of grief, if I go into it, like I mentioned, it's been 5.5 years now. I also lost my older brother in 2022, which was very traumatic because his end was not very pleasant. But if I go back to starting from my mother's time, the first year was probably, I became that person who was taking care of everybody, like the needs, like cooking and cleaning and everything. And my sister had my brother-in-law. My father was also in a lot of pain. They had been together for 41 years. And he didn't know life without her. So he had to relearn. He's still relearning everything at this stage. I think looking back at that time, even the guy who I was dating, he eventually ghosted me because I think he didn't know how to deal with me or anything. But it added on to my pain because initially I thought there's someone who I can talk to a little bit. But I realize now when I look back, but I wasn't being able to share my pain with him at all. One of the incidents which always stuck with me, which I would like people to, I know it's very hard when you are in that pain, but I was trying to show him this without, not consciously, but that was just my programming. I was trying to show him this strong person, this strength, which we women especially think that strength is sacrifice. I think Indian women and South Asian women think strength is sacrifice. And women in general are so strong as it is that they have a lot of capacity to endure. And I've come to realize through these losses and through this grief that strength is not enduring. Strength is sharing the pain. And I wasn't able to express my pain to this person. What he did is his thing. But from my side, I wasn't able to show him my pain. And because I wasn't able to show it to him, he made this comment, "You're very strong." And this date, I think about it, and it upset me so much. I was like, I'm in so much pain. I want comfort. And here you are, you're very strong, you'll be okay. And that's how he shut it off. But that gave me a mirror, and that gave me something to work on for all this. I was not this person at that time at all. I look back at that time and I was this person who was always like sacrificing, enduring, not talking about my pain, and then expecting and getting antagonized if I didn't get what I wanted in return without saying what I wanted. We often expect our needs to be met without even saying what our needs are. And it's been quite this journey. Then I was living in New York City. I changed my apartments. My father would come and stay with me a lot, and my sister, we would hang out. The pandemic slowly started to ease up. And then eventually I decided to move to Washington, D.C. And I found an art gallery. I think all of these became excuses. I just needed to do this for myself, to move to a new place. I wanted to move to a quieter place in regards to New York City. And I moved to DC and I started a new life. I made so many good friends here. Strangely, I had a few friends who just disappeared after my mom. I don't know why, but life showed me that some people don't want to be there during your dark times. So here I found all the people in my dark times. And now when I see light coming in, it's a relationship which is very different. But this city has given me some of the friends who are like family. It was a complete change. I started my life fresh here. I started a new job. I started making new friends. And just as I was settling in, my father got very sick and he had to be taken to the ICU. Just when I moved to DC, life was so strange. In 2022, April, I moved to DC. And 10 days later, he got COVID and he fell and he got very weak and he had I called him and he had this huge black eye and I got terrified. I said, I need to run back. We need to take him to the hospital. He was a little resistant. He was like, I'm fine. But I knew that I had to go back to help my sister and to be part of that. We took him to the hospital and they said that had you not brought him, his sodium levels had fallen so low that he would not have made it. He would have had brain damage. So on top of my mother's passing, this happened. He pulled through it. I came back. And then I go back to New York for one of these trips. My aunt was visiting, my father's sister. And we were meeting at my father's place and the detectives called him and they said that this is a whole story which I'm still not able to completely talk about my brother's story yet because there's some gray zones and it's difficult. But they found remains of someone and they said, we want to come and talk to you. And so we were all together there. They came to my father's place and they gave a description that this was early 40s male and he had a tooth missing and he had the shoe size, and this was the place where it happened. And that place was a place where he and I would sometimes go for hikes together. This was something which was completely unexpected. Dealing with it, the way it happened was another thing altogether. I came back eventually when everything was done and taken care of. My father went to India with his ashes. We cremate the body in my culture. So I came back, and after 2020, the loss of my mother, then my father in the hospital, then my brother's passing. I think after my brother's passing in 2022, I'd started a new job right during that time, and I didn't want to lose that job, so I decided to join it right the day after his cremation. And I went to that work and I didn't tell anybody that this had happened. So I would go there and it became almost like a place where I could go and get busy and then come back home. And as soon as I would come back home, I would feel that sudden void. And then I would be like, I need to get a glass of wine. So for 3 months, and I've never shared this with my sister knows this, but I've never shared this before. But those 3 months right after my brother, I was still making these new friends. So these people were still coming into my life. But I would go to work, I would have those 8, 9 hours of feeling better, come back home and then feel this emptiness. And there was nobody who was, because my family was going through similar grief, it was almost hard for them to be there for me. My sister had her husband, my father had gone to India. So I would come home, remove my shoes, pour myself a glass of wine, and then go on with the few hours before I went back to work again. And I think it hits us at times that after about 2.5 months, it suddenly struck me that this can't go on. So I took charge of that. I started working out. I took help from somebody at that time, and I started talking to someone, and I think that helped me a lot. This was 2023, and then I did a couple of traveling trips. And after that, things started to change a little bit. There's always that fear which stays in me when for example, if I call my father and he doesn't answer, he's just showering. I sometimes go into panic mode and I call my sister, you call him too, you do this too, and this and that. And then I have to tell myself that calm down, wait 5 minutes, and then you'll be talking to him in 5 minutes. So I know this has been like long-winded, but this has been like the past 5.5 years for me. And one thing I want to mention, people have told me many times, you're smiling, you're okay. That means you're okay. You're always smiling, that means you're okay. And initially, like that strong comment, initially it would make me think that things happen in your life, you can't stop smiling. You have to live, you have to carry on, you have to be happy if someone else is happy, if someone else has the best thing happen in their life. And I've had this pain. I can smile in that moment. I can value my pain, I can hold my pain, but I can also smile for them and be happy. So that comment has always, and I'm still reflecting on it and asking myself that, is it the smile that I show the people, and is it a falsity? But then I got an answer, and I thought that this is also like strength, the real meaning of strength, which I am defining for myself. This is also strength that now I've learned to not abandon my pain, but I've also learned that with the pain, there's also a whole life which I want to live, and I cannot stop smiling. But the world will always see that smile and say, you're okay. And yes, I'm okay, but then I'm not okay at times. And that honesty of who I am and what I want to portray to the world is up to me, not for the other person to see and make a judgment. We live in a judgmental world. We judge everybody all the time also. Even I sometimes think we go out and we see a face and we have a calculation and story ready about them. And then I often try to talk to people and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a whole story. Everybody has a story. And this is a whole story. So this is what these days I'm living through this. I feel very content to say that I'm finally discovering that peace, which I've always strived for. And that peace I only feel because I'm true to my feelings, true to my pain, true to my smiles, true to my darkness, and true to my light. But this whole journey of grief, and I love them so much, I miss them. There are things that happen, and the first thought which always crosses my mind, like even with the podcast, the first thought which crosses my mind is that I wish I could tell my mother. She would be so happy. But then that's always going to be there. That sadness is always going to be there. But I know that she's watching and listening. So it gives me equal happiness and equal motivation to do this and to talk, because I know how much happy she would be. So these are all the multiple feelings and oceans of my grief. It comes and goes at times. But I do desire that anytime now I hear of someone's loss, I would give them a hug and tell them that just be. There's no judgment. Just be. Smile or not smile, there's no judgment.
When you say just be, you mean whatever that looks like for them. If you need to be sad,
Yes.
if you need to be alone, just whatever, because that's important. We hear it that grief looks different for everyone. But for some reason, we still try to put on this face and we still try to stay strong through those
Yeah.
processes.
Yes.
But that didn't work for you.
No. I think life taught me that because I was trying to do that so hard, it was making me feel the darkness more. And I've never been that person who's able to mask my pain with like substances or like drinking. I have a limited capacity, so I could do it like 2 glasses of wine or 3 glasses of wine. But I was never that person who could like snuff myself out with that and stop feeling. I feel a lot. Life taught me this that if you want to smile, if you don't want to smile, but whatever the other person says to you is, however, their own experience of life is. If they're saying you're smiling and I don't want them to say that, then maybe I need to look within that, am I feeling pain and I'm showing them a smile? And if I'm doing that, am I still living up to the image of myself that I have, that Summer is a strong person? And the strong which I defined incorrectly, or the strong which my upbringing told me is this is strong. Endurance is strong.
Endurance is strong. And one thing that you would definitely say is to speak what you feel, not what you feel you need to be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an important piece.
Yes. And I say this because this is what I'm also doing. And I'm just putting my vulnerability out to you because I've learned this too, and I'm learning this too. That don't lie. And by lie, I don't mean that I'm like stealing something and saying I didn't buy it. This was for myself at that time that if I'm feeling broken or sad, don't say I'm okay. That's the biggest lie that we are all programmed to tell. And I still find it strange because culturally, being from India, we never had like this, how are you? I'm good. And every morning I step out of my apartment and people are nice. They're trying to be courteous, but they say, how are you? And I say, I'm good. I never ask them, how are you back? Because I feel like I'm asking them for a lie.
Okay.
And I've not done this yet, but I want to do this experiment where for a few days, anytime someone asks me, how are you? I tell them I'm not good.
I'd love to see that experiment.
And but that's also with our friends and with our we become like that. We are like, okay, I'll show them this much pain, but we start to decide how much the other person can take. And
Mm.
I remember after my brother's passing, sometimes people would say, what happened? I would say, my mother passed away in 2020, and my brother, this happened. And sometimes people would be like asking about my story. And then I would say, oh, no, but I'm so sorry. I don't want to bum you out with my story. And then I was like, why am I completely shutting myself and abandoning myself out? This is my story. I've lived through it. I'm living through it. And if firstly, I need the courage to put it out there, but just if the other person does not want to listen, it let them decide that. Why am I deciding for them?
Yeah, that's a great point because you naturally assume that everyone feels like you about this.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, could you explain more about in India when you say it's not common to say, how are you? I'm good. What do you mean by what?
So I grew up in we have like our greeting, which I really like, which is like but that's when if I'm meeting someone or we plan to meet someone, we'll meet them and we'll greet each other. But people generally, now it's different. I'm talking about in India before 2009 because things are westernized now. So I'm sure things are different. But before that, like, If you're going for a walk in the park in the morning, people walking by each other generally don't tend to greet each other. They're not like mean to each other or they're not unfriendly, but that's just how the culture was. Like people, strangers didn't greet each other unless they knew each other.
Okay.
And so that's what I grew up with. And when I moved here, I would love this aspect that we try to engage with everybody
Mhm.
until I came to realize that it's fake. I'm sorry to put this word out there. But if
Yeah.
I have to lie, I'm being compelled to lie every time, then it's fake.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point because it is true that the first thing we say is, I'm fine. Good, thanks. But if we were to be honest, every time we answer that question, the responses would be so broad.
Yes. And I guess I've asked myself this. Do I like the wonderful front desk lady in my building when she wishes me good morning? Do I tell her the truth? But then I ask myself, my answer comes to me in my conversation in my head that no, she doesn't really care. But
Mm.
firstly, I'm again making a call on her behalf, which we tend to do. I'm already deciding maybe she does care. I don't know. This is just my preconceived notion that she doesn't care. But I sometimes I go into this, what would happen if I spoke the truth?
Because you said earlier, now you are living more in your truth, where you are being more honest with yourself about your feelings and your experiences. And you said you have this peace.
Yes. I think that peace is, I've come to pinpoint that thing is that anytime I abandon myself, my peace starts to lessen. Because I'm so astute and aware of my feelings, being an artist and being into the intuitive side of things, I'm very watchful of how it impacts my feeling level. And anytime I have to speak a lie, I feel like it affects me because I'm already healing from all this that has happened and the grief and of all the abandonment of my feelings. Now, if I do it even a little bit, it affects my right away.
Mm.
And if I'm direct, it keeps me in my peace. Now, sometimes what happens is that if we tend to say the truth, there might be a certain situation where we feel we might hurt the other person. So that's one of the typical situations. Say, for example, with a friend, and my friend asks me, do you want to meet me for dinner tonight? And I've often noticed these situations. I keep watching people and myself. And I'm coming to that place where I say, I don't feel like it. I want to sit on my couch and not do anything. And maybe we can redo it, replan someday else. But I think our human tendency is, no, I have other plans. And now why do we feel the need to lie even in such a situation? And it's not, everybody keeps doing it and we are able to sometimes sense it and we are okay with it. We know we all do it. But I've been thinking that why do we, our friends, our people, we are planning things with our people. Why do we have to lie? Because the other person will get offended that you rejected a dinner with me just to be you sitting on your couch is more important to you than having dinner with me.
So you're saying you feel like people would receive hearing that you have other plans better than hearing I'd rather lay on my couch.
Yes. Because in other plans, they feel like they're not getting rejected. But if I tell them I just don't feel like doing it, then the other person tends to feel that I'm getting rejected. Whereas that's not the case, but that's how we go around doing things. We are trying to protect the other person by lying to ourselves.
Yeah. So, in some capacity, lying to yourself sometimes is a way to protect yourself, but
Yes,
other times it could be to try to protect someone else
yes.
with their feelings.
Wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where I am able to tell my friend that I feel lazy, I just want to sleep, I don't want to do this, I don't feel like talking to you today. And it's nothing to do with you. I just don't feel like talking today. But no, we can't do that. We live in a world where we have all these wounds from the way we grew up that we take things as rejections.
Mhm.
And I've done that too, but I'm just being because my life compelled me through all these circumstances that I had to change. Otherwise, I would have sunk into my darkness. So I
Mm.
had to find the real Summer. And finding her made me come to realize all of these things. So that's why I'm talking all of these things. But we tend to just go on in our lives without thinking that why are we saying things? Why are we lying about certain things? In our work situations, in our friend situations, there's an element of lying, which is, in a sense, not owning what we want to do. And we think we are protecting the other person, but what are we protecting them from?
Yeah. One thing you said earlier too is in hard situations, sometimes important people leave.
Yes,
So, in a way, it sounds like it could be an attempt to lessen that possibility. I want to protect you. I don't want to tell you the truth because you might not understand it and you might leave.
yes,
So, it's still more about that other person in that moment than ourselves. If,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, couldn't you say also that maybe a friend would say, really, Summer, what's wrong with you today? Are you feeling okay? Instead of getting offended by that?
Yes, I have those friends now who would say that. And I try to talk all of these things with my friends. And I'm practicing being honest. And I have certain friends who are like, I hope you're okay.
Okay.
And I'm practicing giving them my truth so that I can give them my truth too. But at times I tend to fall into my old ways, which were always like, just have that silence has always been like a defense mechanism for me, a way of dealing things. I was like, I don't have to just keep silent. I'll deal with things with silence. If I get upset, I'll be silent. If I get sad, I'll be silent. If I get angry, I'll be silent. And then that took away from my peace, like I said. And then I started noticing these things that sometimes when we say things, it's actually very uncomfortable because truth is uncomfortable. And then I notice still that sometimes I weigh my options. Do I tell someone I have a meeting or do I tell someone that I don't want to meet them? But it continues to go on and on. And I think as we live our life, there'll be times where we have to say things which are like lies. But then at this point, I realize that these are certain situations which there's no friends involved in this, so there's a work situation or there's such and such things. Not everybody is going to completely get it.
And you have to be okay with that.
Yes. And that's what I'm learning now, the power of boundary.
Mhm.
I can't tell anybody that this is what I'm feeling. Like I had a glass of wine at that time. I couldn't have gone to work the next day and said that I am dealing with my brother's loss by having 2 glasses of wine every night.
I feel like you should have been able to do that.
Yes, but that
Mhm.
was one of the times. My mother's loss was different because it was, yes, she was young too, but it was very different. She left, it was more the pain and the grief. My brother's loss was different because there's a lot of dealing with how it happened and the thoughts of what he must have been through and all of those things which happened. And I felt that after his passing was a phase when I really started to feel suffocated by myself
Mm.
because I was not saying it, I was not expressing it. And but you are so right, and that's why I wanted to talk about this and do this. And I think sometimes isn't it so true that there are certain things which I wanted for myself. I so desire that someone else doesn't go through that. I hope someone who goes through a similar loss does not feel suffocated and does not feel the need to keep silent. And
Silence. Yeah.
yes, and I agree with you that I wish I had that space. But this was me after 6 months of moving to a new city. And within those 6 months, more than half of the time, I was back to New York because my father was sick too. So I was just trying to figure it out. My story was such that my circumstances were tough, and I don't like to go into that zone where I'm like, my life was so tough. I feel like we all have our stories, and each story has pain. But at that time, my story was such that I didn't have the circumstances or the people and everything to have that space where I could break that silence. The dating situation with the person was another story altogether, and I was like, that's another topic altogether.
Mm,
So it was just like that space where I started to see what that lying was doing to me, that
mm,
lying to myself, and that silence. Something came to my mind. I was watching this old mythological TV show, and the deity said that, like, he was telling his wife that I would say there are three things: always speak the truth, don't lie, never hide the truth from me. And I would always think of that thing that sometimes we feel that not speaking the truth is better than lying.
yeah.
But isn't that lying too? I
Yeah,
don't
I'm trying
know.
to find the difference. That's interesting. Not speaking the truth, sometimes we feel like that's better than lying. Huh.
Yes. Yes. And these were the things which I started to notice within myself. And now when someone else does it, I I just recognize it and feel empathy because I've done it too. So I cannot be like, you're doing it.
Yeah.
But I so desire that we give that space to each other. Yes, I need to speak, but I also want to be that person who gives the space to someone that they feel comfortable to tell me anything and feel they're not judged.
Do you feel like that's become something that you offer naturally now
Yes,
with your okay. You can
yes.
feel that and see that.
I feel I still offer it more than I'm able to get it from people.
Okay. So there's still not a lot of people who make you feel safe.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I still think maybe this is about me. But then I'm like, yes, I have very dear friends with who've gone through similar situations, and life brought me people. It was very strange. In my job after my brother's passing, I met a few people who had lost their brothers. And it was very strange. Those people were getting drawn to me, people who had
Mm.
gone through loss. So I connected people through loss a lot. But still, I think this is a space I'm still working on, and this is my truth that I offer that space more than I'm able to receive that.
Which naturally, like you said, you're not going around teaching everyone that you encounter how to do this, but you can say that this is a change within you. And I'm wondering how much of that is causing you to still go inward.
It is making me go inward a lot because, like, sometimes I say something happens and I say, this is about you. Like, for example, there's a situation where someone is, that person did that. And I often tend to see it as, but this is what you did. That person's not in your control. This person is your control. So anytime anyone talks to me, I just cannot be like, point that finger that way. I'm like, what is it here? Because this is the only person that's in our power.
Mm.
And that's how I tend to talk to people. And sometimes it's confusing. It's very confusing to people because we want to blame someone. We
Mhm.
have this desire that we want to blame someone outside of us.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like you said, we are in control of our own feelings and reactions to things.
Yes,
Yeah. And that piece describing that you found way beyond where you were 5 years ago and that you're continuing to find, that's something that a lot of people are still carrying. They're carrying that grief. They have not found that peace. You can tell me this was tough. This is a tough time in my life. And it's not something that I'm saying, oh gosh, I don't want to hear about that. It's a true story. It's your truth. And I'm glad that you're getting more comfortable in it because you deserve to be able to be heard and to express yourself. I'm hoping other people find that same strength, that outer strength, not that inner strength that you tried to hold on to, but that outer display of
yes,
strength saying, I am hurt right now. I'm sad. I'm broken. I feel lost in this moment. I'm wondering how to help more people get through it like you are today.
yes.
So, what is your biggest piece of advice that you would give people going through grief, loss? How do they make it through it?
Don't isolate.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And that's what I still tend to do. But you heard my dog. I got him last year, and that was one of the steps where I was thinking about that yesterday. When I go into a sad state and I go and cuddle with him, I feel better. And it's as simple as that. The only thing that can save us is love.
Mm.
Do not isolate. There's someone who's there. I have my sister, I have my father. Yes, they were going through the same things. I have my aunt who was in India who was willing to talk to me. Still, I have my friends. So I'm seeing my blessings now. So anytime I feel the need to isolate and hide, I tell myself, no, don't isolate. So anytime anyone goes through that, if anyone ever says, I want to be alone, I think that's a coping mechanism. That's not how anyone, because love heals us, rather, I would just give them a hug and not say anything. So, love is the only thing that can save us. And that's my only advice. First and foremost, from my story, don't isolate. Be with your people.
Be with your people. It might be hard,
Yes.
but the worst thing you can do in this case is to isolate.
Yes, because once you isolate, you are not dealing with it. With your people, I think why it gets uncomfortable when we are with our people because our emotions and our feelings will come out. When we
Mm.
are alone, we sometimes we feel, I used to think, I don't know what you think, but about vulnerability, I feel like I've never been that person and I'm finding it now more and more and I'm enjoying it. Even today, I would never have spoken like this, but I would feel if I can cry alone, isn't that enough? But then noticed that it was hard for me to even cry with my friends. And I was like, why is it like the same thing if I'm crying alone or if I'm crying with a friend? It's hard for us to show our real feelings to even our loved ones. So I would say that aloneness delayed the grief for me.
It's
Now
beautiful.
I'm doing all of this, just finally sharing it and by finally talking about it. It makes me feel,
Yeah, and I see that smile that you talk about, being able to smile and to feel it, not to fake it, and to be able to express that, hey, this isn't easy, but I'm still trying every day to find peace in this while still living a fulfilling life.
yes,
Yes, with family, with friends, with love.
yes,
Yeah. Summer, it's been amazing. We're at the end here.
yes.
Is there a final wrap up that you'd like to tell listeners?
Yes, I think I would reiterate on this from my own story is that be with your people. Love is the answer. Love is the only thing that can heal us. So do not think that you have to do it alone. Do not think that there's nobody there for you. Because if there's nobody there for you, I'm there always to be listened to or for a hug for anybody's story. So if anyone is ever going through something, I feel that there's so many more people like me. You're listening to my story. You've given me this space, and the 1 hour flew by. I didn't even notice. That would be my last words. Do not think you're alone. Do not tell yourself that you cannot tell this to anybody. That's not true. We are all similar. We are all going through pains. We all have a story. And we all just need to do one thing is to share it with each other. Honestly.
Honestly, I love it. And so, do you have any channels or anything that you want to mention that people can reach out to you on or
Yes,
anything?
I have my Instagram, which is Summer Roshni Coaching, and my YouTube also is Summer Roshni Coaching because I'm also doing my own podcast, which is Talks with Summer. And grief is a very big topic.
Talks with Summer.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.